Hey there guys, in today's video we are going to discuss two different ways to put together a really easy foraging toy. So if that's something you guys are interested in seeing, you want to make sure to stick around because that's going to be coming up right after this. Hey there guys, this is Jack over at High Red Bird, where I am tirelessly working to find new ways to make the keeping of exotic animals and pets more exciting, more affordable, and ultimately more enjoyable. And in today's video, I wanted to make two different foraging toys for you guys. Now these are going to use the exact same materials. They're pretty much going to be put together the exact same way, but there is a goal in mind for these toys. And there should always be a goal whenever you give a certain item to your animal. You should be trying to elicit a certain response, to have them act on a certain behavior. So you should always ask yourself, why am I giving this animal this toy or this thing to interact with? Now the purpose of giving foraging toys is foraging is the most natural behavior that your bird is going to engage in. In fact, in the wild, outside of sleeping, foraging is what birds spend the majority of their time doing. So they will be acting on natural behaviors. They will be utilizing their intellect, which is something that is not only good for them, but it's a lot of fun for us to see. And I really like the idea of having tiered enrichment items. So having something that starts off very, very easy, and then you have the ability to make it a little more difficult. So we have this one right here. This is going to be a really easy option. And then we have this one right here. This is going to be a little more difficult. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into how we're going to put those together. All right, guys, so there are two ways to build this toy, and both of them are going to start with the exact same materials. So the first thing you're going to need some pressed paper egg crate. You don't want to use styrofoam egg crate because that could be very, very detrimental to your bird if it ends up chewing and ingesting any of those pieces. So you're going to use the cardboard, the pressed paper egg crate for this. Now we are going to be breaking it up into individual pieces. So in order to do that, you are going to need something that can cut the egg crate. My recommendation is going to be something with a serrated blade. So you can use a good kitchen knife with good serration. You can use something like a hacksaw. Do not try to cut this egg crate with something like scissors. You will be startled at the amount of profanity that leaves you if you try to cut into this with scissors, because it doesn't really want to do it. Now I've already pre-cut these pieces. You can see the cut isn't the most perfect. It sort of broke up right around here, and that is perfectly okay. As long as you get the bulk of that cup shape, your bird is going to be fine with it. Your bird isn't going to care if it's not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing. But your goal here is going to be to cut, so each of these individual squares, to cut those out. Now we're also going to need a few more pieces. We are going to need some cable ties. Cable ties are going to be the means of attaching this toy together. If you are not comfortable using the cable ties, you can go ahead, you can use something like pieces of leather, pieces of paper rope, pieces of bird safe or cotton rope. I'm going to use the cable ties because they're very, very easy. They're probably the easiest way that you can put this together. But you do have to make that decision based on your individual bird. You want to make sure that your bird isn't going to chew and eat the plastic from the cable ties, because ingested plastic is going to be one of the largest concerns for a lot of parrots. It is going to be a source of impaction and a lot of surgeries for parrots from them ingesting small bits of plastic. Now, that is going to be individually dependent on your bird. So if your bird doesn't chew on plastic, you can go ahead and try this out. If you know that your bird likes to chew on and eat plastic pieces, don't use the cable ties. Use something else that is safe for them. I will point out right now that, again, individual bird. So species and size of the bird won't tell you everything, although they will give you somewhere to start. Basically, try it out with your bird. Observe them very, very closely to see how they do with it. But cable ties are going to be very, very easy for this. Now I am also going to be needing a flat-headed screwdriver. We're going to be using that to punch holes. I am going to be using some shredded paper. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Oh God, I just realized I'm using red shredded paper and I have a serrated knife smack in the middle of the frame. This toy building tutorial just got very, very dark, didn't it? You're also going to need some treats that can be a part of this toy. We want to try to brighten the mood a little bit. So here I have some Nutriberries that I'm going to be using, and that's going to be for the larger version of this toy. And then I also have some very fine dried pieces of fruit. That's going to be for the smaller version of this toy. So let me go ahead, put these materials away, and we can get started with how we're going to build this toy. Alright guys, now like I said before, there are two ways to put this toy together. The materials and techniques are pretty much identical, so it's all going to be what you decide to do. So the first one we're going to make is going to be a high reward toy. So I have two pieces of egg crate, and I'm going to go ahead and punch a hole using my flat-headed screwdriver into each of those. Now the reason I am using a flat-headed screwdriver, I want something that the cable tie is going to be able to fit through, but that the locking mechanism of the cable tie is not going to be able to fit through. So now that I have those holes punched, I'm going to go ahead, thread it through one of these. I will thread it through the other, but I am going to leave some space, because what I am going to want to do is go ahead, take some bits of shredded paper, because what bird doesn't like shredded paper? It's a ton of fun. And I am going to cram that into there. I am also going to take a cashew. That's going to be a good reward for this one. Now I'm going to go ahead and get those two pieces of egg crate to line up as best I can. So you can see that red paper is going to be sticking out, but it is closed up pretty neatly. Now we are going to need a second cable tie. You want to make sure that you feed it through the correct way. So if you look at your cable tie on the bottom, that is going to be the locking mechanism. That's what's going to line up with the teeth of the cable tie. So you want to make sure that you just get that lined up correctly. And we're going to use that second cable tie on the first one just to lock everything down. So this way we are using two cable ties to secure this toy together. We are not creating a loop or anything else that could be potentially dangerous. Now all that we have to do is trim off those tails. So here I just have a pair of wire cutters. You could use a pair of scissors really easily. Go ahead, just clip them, throw those tails across the table. As long as you pick them up at some point, nobody's going to yell at you, I hope. But yeah, so that's how we make the large reward toy. That's a very difficult phrase to say. So you can see you could fit a lot in here. I did a lot of paper, but if you wanted to do more food items, if you wanted to make it really, really exciting for the bird to open this up, that is going to be a great thing to do. Although it is going to be a little bit big and a little bit bulky. So the other option is to make the exact same toy, but to do it with the pieces inverted. So we are going to go ahead, we're going to use two more pieces. These are the end pieces. These would be a little bit harder to try to get to line up the way that we made this first toy. This first toy works really well for those interior cells. But for this, all we're going to do is, again, punch through both of our pieces of egg crate. Go ahead, line them up. But instead of creating that giant cavity, we are going to invert this so that they nest into each other. So you can get that. And you can see that's going to be a much more manageable toy. Now before I close that off, I am going to want to add just a little bit of shredded paper. Now it's not going to fit as much as this original toy did. And a few pieces of food. Now this way you may have difficulty using something like those Nutriberries or a really bulky food item, whereas they are going to fit really well in here. Smaller pieces, flat things, banana chips are one of my favorites for doing this. And then all you're going to do is the exact same way. you are going to secure this first cable tie with another cable tie. And then again, we are going to go through, we are going to trim down those tails. Now on this one, a pair of wire cutters would make this a little bit easier. Which I will get in just a second. Yeah, because you can see with what I'm using with the needle nose pliers right there, that's still going to give me a little bit more than I am comfortable with. So let me go grab a pair of wire cutters and I'll be able to trim that down. All right, guys, now through the magic of video editing, you can see I was able to clean that up very, very nicely. And that took just a second. I certainly didn't tear my house apart trying to find my wire cutters, and after 10 minutes of searching and being able to find them, did not resort to using toenail clippers to trim back those tails. That is certainly not what happened, but I am going to go ahead and recommend that before you get started, just make sure that you have the exact tools that you need for this project. You can use wire cutters, you can use scissors, but there you go. We have two different toys that accomplish different things. So if I was using these toys, I would probably start out with this one right here, because your bird is going to get a higher reward for taking this apart. And because there is a little more give between that, your bird's going to have an easier time opening that up. Now this one you can see is nested together really, really nicely. So this is going to take a lot more work to be able to take this apart. And you're not going to be able to fit as many treats in there. So it may not be a good way for your bird to start learning how to use this type of toy, but it definitely is going to be something that they can utilize once they are familiar with this. And I always say that foraging doesn't necessarily mean that your bird has to find its entire diet in the center of one toy. The main part of foraging is looking for food, not necessarily finding all the food. So if you have something like this that has a small piece of food in there and your bird has to work to take it apart to get that piece of food, that is going to be a lot more reminiscent of what they would be doing in the wild. So there you go. There are two different ways to put together a really simple foraging toy. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, guys, and it really is that simple. In fact, it can be even simpler if you have all of the materials that you need readily available at your disposal. These are really simple things. But again, with any toy that you give your animal, you should always make sure that you're thinking about their safety. And again, make sure you are thinking about the safety of that individual animal, not just that member of a species or an animal that size, because every animal is going to be different. So you want to make sure you are planning your enrichment with your goals in mind for those particular animals. But this is something really simple to do. I certainly encourage you guys to try something like this. If you guys like this video, if you find these toy videos and other things helpful, go ahead, give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That way you don't miss any of these videos. Obviously, all of these videos are meant to be educational tutorials, so if you want to share them with any of your friends or anything, obviously feel free. I do want to thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time. I need to say thank you to my Patreon patrons for helping to make these videos possible. You can find out more by visiting Hi Red Bird on Patreon or clicking the link in the description section down below if you would like more information. Thanks!